Morning, everybody.
Hello.
We're both really tired today. We went to see Transformers last night, and we got home really late because we have no car. So if we look tired, that's because we are. But we had a good time. We had a good date night.
Yeah.
Watching a very
It was dumb.
silly movie.
It was a dumb movie, but it meant that we weren't.
We didn't have to think about anything for a couple of hours. And I would recommend going to see it if you're a Transformers fan. I would recommend going to see it if you like revisionist history in any way, because it was really silly.
Yeah.
It's really silly. But it was good. Anyway,
Okay.
It was a fun time alone together. So if we look tired, that's why we look tired.
Yeah,
We
no
are
car
tired.
means that
Yes, we have no car right now. Lots
we're
of public
getting to walk a
transportation.
lot, but there's times that you have to wait 20, 30 minutes before you get
Yeah,
going any
it's
farther.
all good though. It gave us more time to be alone together, so it's all good. And you need that. You totally need that. So we're going to talk about. You had a lot of questions from dads about
I've
how to
had
rebuild
questions.
the will. How to build the will.
Yeah, I've had questions about how to get control of your will, and if your partner thinks that you've messed up a lot, or you've messed up a lot, and you've not done what you said you're going to do a lot, and they don't have a reason to trust you, how do you fix that?
How do you rebuild the trust?
And it's kind of a topic that's come up most of the time when we do these videos. It's that we pick the topic because we keep getting something repeating over and over.
That's something that that we're working with other couples, and because we have some couples that we work with privately, and so it's a topic that comes up there. It's a topic that comes up, on Facebook and other places, or somebody's asked Eric about it. So that's where this topic is coming from. So the moms, I work with a lot of the moms, and if they're working our program, then they might be building their will in other ways. Whether it be through being consistent with home things. But I think we should just talk straight across, and that I don't know what happened there. Sorry. So I think we should just talk, about the will, building the will in general. So one thing that I know, and I've been at this will building thing for a lot of years, because some temperaments have a good deal of will, and some temperaments don't. Some temperaments have lower will that needs to be built up, and some temperaments have a lot of will that needs to just be like harnessed and calmed and sort of relaxed a bit. And so one thing that it's important is if you're doing the temperament portion, is to just sort of know that. So if you are phlegmatic or melancholy, you have lower amounts of will that you need to build up. And so, and you might know that if people have called you lazy, or if people think you don't ever get anything done, or if you don't ever feel like you're getting things done, or you feel like you're spinning your wheels. So those might be indicators to you that you need to build your will up. Now, the sanguines and the cholerics have the opposite issue. The sanguine has a ton of will, but it's all crazy, and it's unfocused, and it could have her jumping around like a butterfly, and it makes her look like, or feel like, or him, that they're not actually finishing something, because they have a lot of will to start stuff, but they're usually like starters. They're like the seed planters, and then they don't hang out for the harvest. And so it's about really like learning how to have that follow through, where like the phlegmatic has follow through like in spades often.
That's about getting started.
But it's about getting started. That's the issue. The choleric has generally a lot of will, but it might be like overbearing, and it might need to be toned down a little bit. And so, like if you, there are a couple of people that Ellie has thought about dating that I've said to her, if you end up marrying that person, you're never sleeping in on a Saturday. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, because that person is so choleric, that person is going to have your whole Saturday morning mapped out. It's probably going to be all yard work, so you better be sure that that's what you are signing up for. But so really, it's about the choleric needs to be able to dial back and relax, because often the choleric has a hard time relaxing. And I fall into that spectrum because I'm part choleric, part sanguine, And I can attest that cholerics have more strokes and heart attacks because we're stressed out more, because we stress ourselves out more, because we let ourselves be stressed out more, because we need to control everything. What's wrong with you people? So for sure, for sure.
And I can easily go,
yeah, he can do that a lot easier than I can, but not about everything.
no.
Because phlegmatics also can get in a loop and get kind of OCD about stuff. It's being OCD about the right stuff and knowing when to stop.
Because I can stress because the gap between like what I'm willing to do or what I did do and what I think I'm going to get done, and then I think I failed.
Right.
But it's a process because I struggle with my will every day about one thing or another, about getting something done. And I think,
you've come a long way. You know, we've been married for almost 12 years.
yeah.
And but these concepts, while they didn't have a name before, you had been working on your will. I mean, you had to work on your will to have 2 degrees. You had to work on your will to be able to, leave home and do the things you did and have the career that you had. So it's just about how you harness it. And so it starts one step at a time. So really start with one thing. Decide, I'm going to see this one thing through. And that should be a habit every day. So maybe you start with, I'm going to brush my teeth every day at 7:52 or every day at 5:55 or whatever you need to that works into your schedule, and then do it every single day, even on the weekend, every day, and get a habit. So that's one way to really start to build the will.
Because you could sabotage yourself and go, I'm going to get all this stuff done, and then you don't, and then it's like, I suck, I can't do
Right.
anything.
So you're just going to start with one thing and be very consistent about that one thing. So if you're, because then the next thing is like rebuilding trust, because we've been talking about them. We have several couples that, it's so sad that they, in one way or another, either the wife has let the husband down or the husband has let the wife down. And like and then it just deteriorates. They're not both looking at their temperaments. They're not paying attention to what their own strengths and weaknesses are. And so what I'm seeing a lot of is like mistrust. Like, you didn't do that, so you're never going to do that.
The speaking of absolutes.
Speaking of absolutes, y'all can't do that. You can't, even if it has been an all or nothing thing. You got to give, if you want your marriage to succeed, you've got to give that space for somebody to actually succeed. Otherwise, some temperaments will be like, well, screw it then. She doesn't ever think I'm going to do it, so I'm not going to do it.
Like, no matter what I do,
right,
she's not going to get over the fact that I didn't do it.
Yeah, because you can't, not all temperaments can take like a comment like that. Like, so a cleric would be like, I'm going to fix that. Because the cleric doesn't want somebody to tell him you're not going to do something. Where a phlegmatic will be like, all right, I'm just not going to do it.
Nothing I do is going to make you happy, then I'm just not going to.
Right. So you have to know your audience, people. So when you're thinking about, like, when you're having discussions, even when you're fighting, which I don't recommend doing, but even when when you're having those heated discussions, know your audience. Know what you're saying is going to actually have an impact. And know that the right words to say to them. That's why the very first lesson is temperament. Because once you can understand that, it'll help you so much in your relationships.
Well, one thing we've come across is, say someone's had a history of just falling down on the job all the time or not getting things done, and then they do one thing okay.
And then they
like,
stop.
They're like, I can't believe that you're not appreciating that I did this, even though I'm not doing anything else.
I mowed the lawn one time.
And so,
right. So you have to be humble enough. If you are the one that's done the falling down, you have to be humble enough to be like, okay, I had to do way more than just that one thing.
You have to make yourself uncomfortable.
Whether it be falling down or or maybe you're a name caller. We've got a couple of situations like that where one of the parties is a name caller and they're trying to control their will about name calling, and then I go, whatever made you think that was okay? I want you to often I think it's important and gives you different perspective. When you look at the habits that you have that aren't great and put them on your kids, and then go, do I really want to cultivate that? Because guess what? They see you doing it, they're learning. That's how they're learning. They're learning from that. They learn from you every day. And we talked about that before. We talked about that last week. Everything you do, they learn. So you got to ask yourself if that's really what you want them to be learning.
Because we all have moments where, oh no, I think I'm turning into my dad, or I'm turning into my mom.
Oh, totally. Totally. I can remember this one time I was in therapy with my ex-husband. And the therapist asked me, what was my chief complaint? I said, he's turning into his mother. And the therapist was like, what? Let's start over. So it's all about we don't want to turn into our own, if we've got issues in their past, we want to be sure that we are not sounding like, because especially if you're a mom, then you've probably had the opportunity to hear yourself sound like your mother and go, wait a minute, what was that just happened? But you want to make sure that you're emulating good things, not bad things. Not bad things. So if you have some bad habits that you need to rein in, you need to be grown up enough to say, I have some bad habits, and this is what they are, and this is what I'm working on, and especially if they're a bad habit that you know is a bad habit, and your partner is really struggling with that bad habit. Love yourself enough and love your partner enough to work on it.
I mean, it's a balancing act between forgiveness and having proper expectations, and being honest with oneself, and being patient with what's in front of them. And
totally, I think that being honest with oneself is an important one, because I think often when we are in a situation where, especially if your marriage is rocky or you've had rocky times, when you feel picked on, you don't want to look at yourself. You don't want to look at what what your part could possibly be in it. That's a hard thing to do. It's a very humbling thing to go, what was my part in this? But I have to tell you, the biggest change that happened in my life, personally, was after my divorce, when I was able to take those really hard looks, and I went, all right, what was my part in that? I wasn't the abuser, but I had a part in some things. I definitely let my mouth get out of control. I definitely allowed things to go on too long. So you have to sort of step back and go, what's my part in things? Is there any truth to what my partner's saying? And yeah, it's frustrating. You said you had a guy you were working with, and it was like, yeah, if I knew there was truth in it, I would be even more mad.
Yeah, because I say that if I realize there's a point, then I know that I can't get too mad about it, because even if it's not something I want to hear, if there's truth to it, I have to accept.
You have to accept it.
I have to accept it. But he was like, "No, that's going to make me even more mad."
Yeah, and so that you have to really step back and check out, what are you mad about? Are you mad because you have this and you just wish you're so entitled? You just wish you could just do it and have nobody be mad at you? It's not the world we live in. It's not why you're here. Remember, you're here to work on your marriage and work on your partnership and have it be not just a good one or a fair one. You want it to be a thriving one. I was reflecting as we were walking last night. We will have been married for 12 years in a few weeks, and I love him more today than I did then, and we are definitely like newlyweds, almost daily. We have our things that we have to do. We have family that we're raising, but there's nobody on this planet that I'd rather be with than Eric. And if you're not in that spot with your partner and you're not craving time with them, then dig deep into Thrive. Dig deep into figuring out what the heck is going on, and really work to remember why it is that you became partners to begin with, and really strive to work on your will. And I think it's interesting, because so many of the people that we're talk with that say they're having struggles with their will, they're doing things like going to the gym every day. They're working on their will. It's just about things that they don't really want to work on. It's just about the things that might be, oh, well, I don't want to have, my wife doesn't want me to take my phone out of my pocket so much. Well, how do you work on that one? That's an addiction issue. We were on the bus yesterday, and I looked around, every single person was like this. Every single person. I had to realize that on public transportation, often there's nothing else to do. But I'm like, get a dang book.
Or they don't. I don't want anyone to talk to me.
They don't want to, yes. And I talk to everybody. I'm kind of weird like that. I embarrass my children on a regular basis. That's who I am. some lady that was from New York yesterday. It was like one of 6 children. Her and her dog. Her car broke. She's on the bus just like us. So, yeah. You should be thinking about ways to connect. And I know hopefully you guys are. But if you're working on not having your phone in front of you, and that's part of your will building, make a basket in your house, so when you walk in the door, you drop your keys and your phone in a basket and leave it there for a couple of hours. And try not to have it in front of your face so often, because it is distracting, and there's nothing more frustrating than to be talking to somebody and to realize that they're not listening to you.
How many times with
And I tried to be really good at one moment I need to finish what I'm writing, and then I'm happy to talk to you.
Well, because when you're talking to somebody and it's
like
you don't,
this.
and it's like, are you listening to me? Yeah.
Oh yeah, our teenage daughter likes to do that.
It's like,
Put the phone down, Eleanor.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when we've failed spectacularly, and we've all had
We failed spectacularly.
we've all had times. I mean, nobody doesn't.
No, that's how we learn.
But
Mistakes are how we learn.
sometimes the road back from that is a long one.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. And I think that you both have to be willing. I sort of talked to a couple yesterday, and they're not sure why they're still together, because they're not really willing to rebuild. And I guess if you're in that spot, what I want to say is you both deserve love, and you both deserve to have happiness. And if it's not together, you have to figure that one out. And we've worked with a lot of couples that have gone down that road too. You know, hopefully it would be that you're together, but don't live in unhappiness just to. Because
Life's too short for that.
it is too short for that. And I've heard a lot of people say, I can't walk away until my children are grown. And so I can remember the day that because I used to be in that camp, like, well, maybe when my kids are grown. The day that I realized that I didn't want my boys to act that way and to treat me that way was the day I was like, okay, then I have to do something about it. I didn't want my sons to grow up and think that was an okay way to treat women. And so you have to think about, is that an okay way to treat each other? And hopefully, I mean, our prayer for you is that you fix things and that you, that you build things up. So then I guess we should probably talk about, because not everybody's in crisis mode.
No.
Not everybody's in crisis mode. There's lots of really happy families out there. And so if you're looking at building your will together, then maybe it's on, maybe you go on a walk every day on a consistent time. Or maybe you're taking supplements together at the same time, and you're sort of being each other's, backup. So if you're making dietary changes, making them together, sometimes it's a great will builder, especially if you're on the same page. Not if you're like, hey, you're fat, nothing like that. Don't be doing anything like that. Definitely be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Or, oops, sorry, I kicked the tripod again. Hey, this is, something that we're working on together. That's really a great way to build your will together. Read a book together, even if it's not the same book. Maybe you're reading a book and he's reading a book and you're talking about it on a daily basis together. There's great ways to build your will as couples. And if you need more ideas, feel free to ask us, because we have some great ones. And I think that anything that becomes a consistent habit, keeping your rhythm is a great will builder. Staying on your rhythm, working together, building that menu together every week, having family council every week. Every week, have a family council every single week. It's so important.
Well, because it can be really, if once you've established a good rhythm, it can be really uncomfortable when you get off of it.
Yeah, it can be, because then you go, oh, wait a minute.
Something's wrong. Something's
Yes,
off.
totally. And then that's it becomes something to then get back on. And what's great is if you've got a good rhythm, your kids will go, wait a minute, why aren't we doing X, Y, and Z? Because they're in the space, especially if they're younger, of they're building their will, and they can feel it, and it feels good, and they don't want to deviate from it. And so they'll often call you on it if you're trying to deviate from it. So, I think any of those things, any of the concepts that we've given in Thrive are excellent will builders. So ask yourself, am I really working the program? Am I going through and I'm working the each one of the steps? Because it is super important that you understand all those foundational pieces, because they all work into They will all work into the greater whole. They all work into having, a happy partnership. And it's not just about your partnership. It's also about like feeling good about yourself and understanding your own temperament, understanding your own issues and struggles with holding the space, and your own issues with rhythm. And dads will sometimes say, well, she keeps the rhythm at home, I don't have to worry about it. But you have personal rhythm. So what's your personal rhythm like? And by that, like, what's your self-care habits? Because dad needs self-care too. Just because he might leave all day long, it doesn't mean he doesn't need self-care. Both partners need self-care. Mom definitely needs it if she's staying home with the children. She needs that break. But dad, he might be going to a stressful job every day, and so he needs that break too. So what's your self-care rhythm like? And how are you working to take care of yourself? Maybe you're going to the gym, or maybe you're running when you get home, or maybe you like to shoot bad guys after your kids go to bed. Anything like that. What is your own self-care rhythm, and are you aware of it? And sometimes that might be, just like, what supplements are you taking? What are you doing to feel better about yourself? But all of those pieces are will building pieces. When you know that your will is sort of out of control, is if you're struggling finishing something, and then you ask yourself, when was the last time I finished something? When was the last time I saw something from the beginning to the end? If you live in a house, I have some poor moms that are in this situation, so dads, I'm sorry. If you live in a house that is internally being renovated, fix your will. It will your renovations will be done. I have a couple of moms that are like, we have been renovating for 6 years. My house is insane. Have mercy on the poor women and finish your jobs. It's a lot to work through chaos, and you get to go to work every day and not have to see it. And so, if you've got an unrenovated house, let's get that fixed. Like, seriously, sit down. And how do you fix those things? You sit down together, you make a goal list together, and you discuss what needs to happen in what order. And, I'd really like the bathroom completely finished first. Or I'd really like the kitchen completely finished first. I'm tired of washing dishes in the bathtub, dude. Those things. If those are the issues, make a list. And then, make not just to make the list, but when is it going to get done? Because that's a huge will builder too. If you have a deadline, I think that working for the newspaper was probably a huge will builder for you. Because, so Eric was a newspaper reporter for many years. He had deadlines. So that was good for him. There
wasn't any way around it.
There was no way around it. You knew that your boss was going to be screaming at you otherwise, and so you had to push through.
Yeah, and if you didn't get it done, there was going to be a hole.
Yeah,
on the page.
Newspaper.
That was your fault.
That was your fault.
And so part of my will building has been because I want to avoid awkward situations, or so then it's like I don't want to feel like that, or I don't want to be the one that let everybody down. And so that's sometimes what motivates me.
Right. So definitely think about your follow through and how your follow through is, and if it really sucks, then you got to figure out where does that come from? Do you come from a really sanguine parent, where your parents really sanguine, never made you finish anything? One of the things.
Or is it passive aggressive?
Could be like some stuff going on up there where you're really like, well, I don't really want to do that anyway. So I'm just going to trip it all up.
That's going to make him or her mad that I didn't do it, and then I'll just make some excuse. And I know that I was going to irritate them, but if I just make an excuse why I didn't do it, even though I'm on purpose doing it to irritate them.
Yeah, so don't do that. If you're here listening to these videos, don't do that. That's for people that are already done with their marriage. Because that's the road to hell is paved with passive aggressiveness. Not good intentions.
Yeah.
So, and if again, I would start to say, if you come from a background where you weren't like being ever forced to finish anything, one of the things as a parent that we have to balance is, my child started this class and they really don't like the teacher. What should I do? I go, well, you finish the class. Unless the teacher's abusive, or your child's really being picked on, go and observe and finish it out. You want your kids to finish something that they started. Our kids do karate, and it's really interesting to me because not that everybody needs to be in it like gung-ho for life, but it's really interesting to me when people go, we're just stopping for the summer, because I go, that the kids really need that consistency when it comes to building something like a karate career. If they're wanting to be there, that's like a lifelong keep going. kind of thing. Or when, parents start piano lessons and then they just stop. And it's not necessarily because of money, just because their child didn't want to practice piano anymore. So it's about finishing things. And that's definitely okay to stop and make a decision that you're stopping, but know why you're making the decision. And make that decision together as a couple if it encompasses your child. And even though we often have this impulse to rush in and save our kids all the time, we found that with our sons, especially our older boys, that it was okay to let them squirm a little bit, not to be totally uncomfortable, but especially when they were like between 10 and 13, when they needed to start to speak up for themselves. Remember, I was thinking about some scouting situations where we were like, well, did you talk? Did you say something, or did you just stand there while they talk to you like that? And so you have to balance that respect for adults where they don't want to say something, and when the adult is being disrespectful to them, kind of thing. And so, I think it's important to talk to your kids about those things, because that's all about follow through. It's all about will. It's about learning how to knowing when to speak up, and knowing when it's okay that you don't have to. And those are each piece is judgment by judgment. You have to look at each piece as it comes. I was trying to think if there were any other situations where we've worked with Will with the kids. And sometimes you're just gonna have like our oldest son who reads 3 3/4 of a book series and then stops. I'm just gonna have that. And I wasn't willing to fight with him about it. It was a Star Wars book. If it had been Shakespeare, maybe I'd have been like, you're finishing this. But I don't know. Poor Timothy's on. Sorry.
You want to know how it ends? No, I don't care.
It's about follow through, though. And he's learning those other lessons in other ways. So you don't have to be the one that always teaches them about follow through. Sometimes they learn about follow through other people. Sometimes they fall down on their face, and that's okay. That's part of that's how we learned, That's part of the job. That's part of how they learn in return.
Yep.
So, do you have anything else to say?
Nope, I think that we covered it.
I think we did too.
But if anyone has any questions or suggestions about stuff to talk about next time, please let us know, and we'll be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, and if you have any more questions about will building or anything else within the program, please just let us know. We're happy to explain things further, talk about things further. I'm hoping that these videos are helpful. I've had some really good feedback from some people that said that they're watching them together on a regular basis. So we're going to just keep doing them, and hopefully you're working through the program. And it's a great program. It's a great program, and it's going to expand into more parenting stuff soon. We just have to get other stuff done first.
Yes, a lot of other stuff done.
Our list is really long. Anyway. Mm-hmm. All right. We hope you guys have a great week and a good weekend. Make it a great one. Have fun together. Have fun together as a family. Find ways to connect with each other. And if you want something silly to go watch Transformers.